Okay, so when I say great powers of the ancient world, what are the first few names that pop into your head?
You've probably got the Roman Empire, right? I mean, their legacy is etched into the very foundation of the Western world. You can't miss it.
And then, of course, there's the mighty Persian Empire, this absolute giant that dominated the East for centuries.
And yeah, you have to include the great dynasties of China, a total powerhouse of culture and innovation. These are the big ones, the names we all learn in school. But what if I told you there was a fourth?
Yeah, Aksum, a name that, let's be honest, might not ring a bell for a lot of us. But this was an empire that stood shoulder to shoulder with those other titans, and yet somehow it's mostly faded from our collective memory.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Back in the 3rd century, a prophet named Mani literally wrote, "The 4 great powers of the world are Rome, Persia, China, and Aksum." So in its own time, it was absolutely recognized as a global superpower. And that brings us to the big question for this explainer. How on earth did one of the world's great powers become a historical footnote?
Well, for starters, Aksum didn't just appear out of thin air. Its roots run deep, way deep, into the rich history of the Ethiopian highlands, beginning with a powerful kingdom that laid all the groundwork.
Before there was Aksum, there was the kingdom of Dempt. You can think of them as the foundational civilization, the ones who really set the stage for the empire that would follow. They established this tradition of a complex society in the area almost 1,000 years before Aksum even got started.
And when you look at the timeline here, you can see this is a long, continuous story of civilization. I mean, they were building major temples hundreds of years before the Common Era. That tells you a sophisticated, well-organized society was already thriving long before Aksum came along and took its place on the world stage.
The people of Dempt were incredible engineers and craftsmen. They built sophisticated irrigation systems for their farms and were masters of iron. And what's really fascinating is this cultural exchange they had with the Sabaean kingdom right across the Red Sea. That connection would become the absolute cornerstone of Aksum's power.
So building on that strong foundation, the kingdom of Aksum had this one incredible asset that it used to become an economic titan: its location. It was all about location, location, location.
I mean, Aksum was basically the gatekeeper. It sat at the crossroads of a maritime superhighway that connected the massive, hungry markets of Rome with all the exotic goods of India and even further east. All that trade, all that wealth had to pass through their territory. And you better believe Aksum grew fabulously wealthy by controlling it.
Just look at the stuff flowing through their main port city of Adulis. It was truly a global marketplace. Aksum was exporting these super valuable African resources, think ivory, gold, emeralds, and in return, they were importing the most sought-after luxury goods you could find anywhere in the ancient world: silk from China, spices from India, fancy glass from the Roman Empire. It must have been an absolutely buzzing, cosmopolitan center of commerce.
And this is a huge deal. In the ancient world, minting your own coins was a massive statement. It was a power move. It basically announced to everyone that you were an equal player on the world stage. Aksum produced coins in gold, silver, and bronze, a clear sign of their economic power and a fantastic piece of propaganda that traveled all across the known world.
But Aksum's power wasn't just about money and trade. In the 4th century, something dramatic happened that would totally reshape its identity and its place in the world forever.
Now get this, because the story is wild. It sounds like something straight out of a movie. A young man from Syria, Frumentius, gets shipwrecked, captured, and sold into slavery at the royal court. But he's smart, he's charismatic, and he works his way up, eventually becoming the trusted mentor to the young prince, Ezana. He uses that influence to introduce his Christian faith, and when that prince finally takes the throne, he makes a decision that changes the entire course of his nation's history.
And you know how we know this really happened? We've got the receipts. Literally, on their coins. King Ezana's early coins have all the symbols of the old gods, but his later coins, they are stamped with the Christian cross, a bold, public declaration to his people and the entire world that Aksum was now a Christian kingdom.
You can still see the legacy of Aksum's power today, written in these towering stone monuments that still stand. But there's also the mystery of how this mighty empire eventually just faded away.
So, let's start with a number that just kind of captures the scale of their ambition: 33 meters. To put that in perspective, that's about the height of a 10-story building.
That number, 33 meters, was the height of the Great Stele of Aksum. And get this, it was one of the largest single-stone monuments ever quarried and put up in the ancient world.
carved from a single block of granite to look like a skyscraper. It's just an absolute marvel of engineering, a massive tomb marker that basically shouted Aksum's power to the heavens.
So how did it all end? Well, there's no single easy answer. It was more like a perfect storm of devastating factors. Rival empires rose up and choked off their economic lifeblood, that Red Sea trade. And at the exact same time, the climate shifted, the rain stopped coming, their crops failed, and the environment collapsed. The very foundations of Aksum's power, both from trade and from farming, just crumbled away.
But here's the cool part. Aksum was never truly lost. It was just overlooked. And archaeologists are constantly uncovering new pieces of its incredible story. Take this stunning ring, found just recently. It perfectly blends Roman style with local Aksumite design. It's a real, tangible reminder that this history isn't dead. It's just been waiting to be rediscovered.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The story of Aksum proves that so much of history has these silent chapters. It really forces you to ask, right? If an empire once mentioned in the same breath as Rome and Persia could be so completely forgotten, what other great stories and mighty civilizations are still out there just waiting for us to rediscover them?